in the third. How about Texas Tech and Kansas State? That Optimus Klein and that K-State locomotive just keeps on chugging down the tracks. And here, Tremaine Thompson, the beneficiary of Klein's good arm.
He's been throwing the ball extremely well, and now with John Hubert running also effectively, it gives him the opportunity to do this in his own read.
Can do it with his arm, can do it with his feet. He can do it with his feet.
Yeah, you get good blocking. Everybody's locked up. All the purple jerseys on a white jersey. One purple jersey gets into the end zone.
And then Seth Dagey, 13 touchdown passes in his last 2 weeks. Ooh, not today.
Arthur Brown saying, no, I'm the wrong color jersey. I'm a purple jersey. You're a white jersey. I go to the purple end zone. We beat you 55-24.
That's how football works. The simple
lead 13-10 at intermission. Third quarter, different game. And this is Colin Klein for Heisman Archive right here. First Klein, it's Tremaine Thompson from 21 yards out. That made it 20-10 Wildcats. Then Klein doing it with his legs. We've seen it before. 16-yard touchdown run, and Kansas State is up by 17. Later, more Klein as their defense would stop Texas Tech. This time it's Klein on a 22-yard dash up the middle, 34-17. Klein with more than 300 yards of total offense alone. More from Hubert in the fourth quarter. A 15-yard touchdown run, and Hubert with 2 touchdowns on the day. Kansas State is up by 24. And it was that kind of day for the Red Raiders. Watching Klein and company on offense, and then Dagey's pass gets tipped and intercepted by Arthur Brown.
Arthur Brown has been their big play defensive guy for the last couple of years. He's really having a nice career.
A pick six from 37 yards, and the Wildcats make a huge statement with this one. Break them up. They go to 5-0 in conference, 8-0 for the first time since they partied like it was 1999. The Wildcats have beaten 5 straight ranked opponents. How about it? Let's head back to the Little Apple and join the guys who called it, Gus Johnson and Charlie Davis.
55-24 the final. K-State continues to roll. Gus Johnson, Charles Davis. And, you know, this game was close in the first half, 13-10 at halftime. Different story second half.
So efficient, so cold in how they do things. When you think back and you look for highlight plays that people are going to pick out, and you might not find a bunch of them. But then you go back and put it all together, and you're talking about offense, defense, kicking game, all knitting together. This is one of the best teams in the country, and there's no reason to say that Kansas State might not be the best team in the country. I think they can challenge anyone.
Oklahoma State next week for the Wildcats. For Charles Davis, this is Gus Johnson saying so long from Manhattan.
Thank you, gentlemen. K-State has scored 50 or more points in 5 games this year. Wow. So I know we sound like a broken record every week. We're talking about Colin Klein. He's now 19-4 as a starter at the school. This kid can do it all.
Well, he can do it all, and the K-State football team can do it all. Rick, there was a lot of folks that thought this thing, Tech would go up there and beat them. Tech's been probably about as hot the last couple of weeks as anybody. And Kansas State put a big knot on their head today. Colin Klein did this. This guy, you know, I still think nationally people don't realize, Rick, how good a football player this kid is. You know, he's not just some big guy out there who makes a play every now and then. He's not just a keeper of the keys. This guy makes plays. We're going to show you later on what he's doing again. This is vintage Colin Klein running from when the game's in doubt. They put the ball in his hands, and he's going to do something good with it.
What I love about him is they know what he can do and what he's done, but they still can't stop it.
Well, that's the mark of a real good one. Think about that, Rick, of all the outstanding guys we've seen, of guys that win the Heisman Trophy. You know what's coming, and you can't do anything about it because the guy's too good.
Back-to-back weeks, he knocks out a Heisman Trophy contender, Geno Smith, the week before. This was a tight game until the second half. That's when the Kansas State defense shut down the high-powered Texas Tech offense. How did they do it?
Well, you know, you love to watch these guys play defense. Rick, there's not anybody that just jumps totally off the screen at you, but they can run, they tackle well, they're fundamentally incredibly sound in how they do things. They don't really get into a lot of bizarre fronts or coverages. You know, 2 sacks, 1 interception, 2 fumble recoveries. they just do the things that you do consistently to win. They're as interesting a defensive unit to watch as we've seen in years.
They are just football players, and they play clean games. Let's take a look ahead now for Texas Tech, who's already bowl eligible. It's a Lone Star showdown with Texas, then Kansas, and on the road with OSU and Baylor. When you look at this thing, how many wins do you see for the Red Raiders?
I think they'll run the table, Rick. I think this is
Really?
one of really the better stories we've seen. Now, they obviously got to do it. Colin Klein needs to stay well for him probably to do it, but they have legitimately got it going.
Now, that was Tech. You think they can run the table?
Well, I don't know. Tech, no. To be honest with you, I don't think. But they're a nice story defensively.
Well, let's take a look at that Kansas State schedule as you were talking about them running the table. You don't see anybody there. Oklahoma State's probably the toughest challenge next week.
Well, they'll all, Oklahoma State, they had a heck of a ball game with them a year ago. K-State liked to beat them in Stillwater. And yes, they probably do, if you look at it on paper, have played the toughest part of their schedule. But like Bill Snyder coached teams, Rick, they'll still continue to get better, I bet you.
Is he the leading candidate for Coach of the Year? I know there's going to be arguments, and all the press that Notre Dame gets for Mr. Kelly, but, this job is simply remarkable what he's been able to do.
Well, I personally think in all of college football, you got Bill Snyder and then the rest. Like Barry Switzer said, and I've said this before, repeating what Switzer said, he's the coach of the millennium. What this guy is doing right now, and this might be the vintage team of them all, Rick.
Yeah, and you think about what he's doing. He's doing what two other teams that he coached back in the late 90s have done, and that started off unbeaten at this stage in the season. Let's take a break on Big 12 Live. Coming up next, the Baylor. Back-to-back weeks, Colin Klein knocks out another Heisman Trophy contender. Daggy threw for more yards, but Klein played a cleaner game and accounted for 4 touchdowns, over 300 yards by himself. Coach Bill Snyder won't talk Heisman Trophy about Mr. Klein, but he's got to like his chances for his team having a special season.
Defensively, we played well throughout the entirety of the ball game. Our special teams did a nice job, and our offense kind of came alive a little bit in the second half. Yeah.
And as far as Colin Klein goes, he keeps expanding his game. Does he just keep getting better and better, in your opinion?
I think so. And that's his intent. He's committed to that, and as I've said so many times, in all facets of his life. He's a lot more than just a football player, and he works very diligently to get better all the time. You'll have to walk if you want.
I'm walking with you, Coach. I'm walking with you. All right, so next week you guys host OSU here. What do you have to do to ride this momentum going up against them?
Well, it's a day at a time. It always has been, and it can't be any different. We've got to take care of ourselves on Monday and do what we need to do on Tuesday and Wednesday, and et cetera. It's just one step at a time, and if we get ahead of ourselves, then there's not anybody left on our schedule that can't beat us if we don't get ourselves right.
Julie Alexandria is the only one I know that can actually slow him down enough to get enough questions in there before he walks out of the stadium. And you can do what you want when your stadium's named after you. Snyder isn't going to do any campaigning for the Heisman, but when his Wildcats need to make a big play, guess who he's going to go to?
Now, we've seen some of this before, but if Bill won't campaign for this youngster, I will. I can. Again, the game is in doubt. Let's watch what's going on here. We've seen this stuff before, but this is Klein at his very, very best in the things that he sees and what they ask him to do. Again, the game is in doubt right now. His eyes, they're turning the nose guard loose, Rick, and he's reading him. Now he tries to make a move at the dive back, and here goes Klein. Guys that are just normal, you can't ask them to do this sort of stuff. All right, let's watch this kind of stuff. Here's again another called quarterback run. The game's in doubt. This is a 10-point ball game at this point right here. So they're going to put the game in Klein's hands. Okay, he's hesitating. Now he's watching. Watch where these errors go. If this guy on the top, if he runs in behind it, he goes over the top. Wow. Klein does exactly what that guy does. He knows exactly what he sees. People talk about feel for the game. This guy's got it to the nth degree. You flash those stats up there like we did the graphic with him and Daggy, he's probably not going to have quite the pure stats that some people do. There's not very many people that can do what he can do with his eyes and with his feet and with his arm and with his leadership. This guy is a real McCoy. I think personally, if he doesn't get hurt, there's going to be a Heisman Trophy in Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah, and keep in mind there's a McCoy in Texas, so you got to be careful when you bring out that real McCoy stuff. But I look at this kid and I say he is, you know, second only to one other person in touchdowns since 2011, and that's a running back at Wisconsin. What he's able to do and what people know he can do, and they cannot stop this kid.
Well, this is what you said before, and this is why he is what he is. When the game's on the line, you trust the guy. You trust him to make good decisions, either running or passing. And when you can do that, Rick, that gives you so many options. It gives Bill Snyder a lot of options on which way to go. And you know the guy's not going to do anything goofy with the football to get you beat.
The 23rd ranked Texas.
Kansas State against Texas Tech, led by the ultimate top 5 slayer, Tommy Tuberville. But Tommy Tuberville hadn't run into Optimus Klein very often. Colin Klein, Tremaine Thompson, 19 of 26, 233, 2 touchdowns. This was a 13-10 game at the half. It's now 20-10. And then Klein, what a patient runner. Marvel at his patience all the time. K-State's in control now. What happens here on the read option?
What he's doing, he's reading whether the defensive tackle comes down or not. When he does, he has a quickness. He goes right by him, goes in untouched. Perfect execution by Colin Klein.
27-10. I'm sorry, did we say something about perfect execution by Klein?
Did you say patience? He was so patient on that play. He waited for his blockers to get their blocks, and they just took off and ran it in 22 yards for the score.
Kansas State's defense was a force as well. It's 41-17 when Seth Diggy's picked off by Arthur Brown. Arthur Brown, Meshach Williams, I'm going to tell you, these guys in purple on defense, they are no joke. Klein accounted for 4 touchdowns, a shovel pass to Angelo Peace. Second straight week, K-State has 55 points, 55-24 over Texas Tech. Got a great chance to finish ahead of a Big Ten, maybe even a Big East champion. Capital One Cup, EC East. Well, he's a regular. If he doesn't win a helmet sticker, he gets nominated for the Capital One Cup Impact Performance. Colin Klein counted for 4 more touchdowns. Second straight week, the Cats have scored 55 as they beat Texas Tech.